Hello, hello, beautiful people, mi gente bella. Welcome to another edition of Santana Says, where we talk about everything from roadblocks to relationships, everything in between, and the overall journey of life. I am excited, as always, to bring you another edition of this show. But we are also going into another series, essentially. Yes. We wrapped up Women's History Month last month, and I jumped the gun and said that it was AAPI last month. It was not.
Oh.
Last month was actually Autism Awareness and Sexual Assault in April. And in May, it is Mental Health Awareness Month and AAPI this month.
Appropriate.
So, yeah, there we go. Yeah, there we are. So I was a little early, y'all, but it is Asian American Pacific Islander Month this month, which is really cool. So there's a lot of indigenous folks that fall up under that, but there's a lot of really great people, one of which was our most recent guest. So if you want to check that out, go back and check it. Our finale guest was a Pacific Islander woman who talked about her experience. That's really cool. But our guest today also has some interesting, roots, if you will, and identity. So beautiful person. Could you tell the people a little bit about you, who you are?
Sure. I am so excited to be here. Jennie Valez from the good old CLE.
Right. Yes, ma'am. Jennie from the block.
And yes, I am Jennie from the block, but the Cleveland block.
That's right.
The Ohio block.
That's right.
Yes. And my family is from Cleveland, but before Cleveland, they came from New York City. Before New York City, they came from Puerto Rico.
Yep.
Before Puerto Rico, they came from Spain. So a lot of mix. My father's also from Cleveland, and he has a little bit more of the European mix. So I think I have a little bit of Irish, according to Ancestry.com.
Right. Okay, right, exactly.
There was a little bit of Irish. There was some German sprinkled in there, but 50% Spanish.
Okay.
Yes.
Wow. All right. So it's a mixture in there. Oh, and I didn't name what the series was, but Moms and Mental Health is what we are looking at. So yes, we just recently celebrated Mother's Day. So shout out to all the mamas.
Woo, woo.
Exactly. And mothers of all kinds, because we know them all. You know what I mean? The young, the old, the single, the married, just all the moms that we could possibly know. So we definitely want to shout them out, but also the fact that, some of us are trying to cultivate an awareness around mental health. And since it is Mental Health Awareness Month, I wanted to bring the two together. So you are a perfect person for that. But I did love that you shared, yes, a little bit of your background and ethnicity-wise who you are. But I'm sure you have a fixation or at least interest in things mental health and things of that nature. But, what has been your experience with that?
Ooh, mental health is a very close to heart subject, I would say, going all the way back to my teenage years. I ran away from home when I was 13. I don't know that you know this.
I didn't.
No, I ran away when I was 13. I took my bike. I took a backpack and a hammer.
Okay.
With some snacks.
There we go.
Luckily, on my voyage, I didn't have to use the hammer on anyone, but I did have to use it to get into places that I needed to take for shelter.
Okay.
I think looking back, I'm almost 40 years old now, but looking back on just my overall mental health, I think that was a pivot point for me. And my family ended up finding me and brought me back home. But over the course of my lifetime, there's been moments where I've struggled with that. Right. And I'm also in the military, and so I've seen a different side of mental health just being in the service. For example, I lost a shipmate to suicide, and she was very close to me. She came under my wing when we were going through basic training.
Right.
And we were very close. She actually taught me how to sew.
Wow,
and
really?
She was younger than me. Yeah,
That's
and
so
she taught
cool.
me how to sew during basic training.
Wow.
And we kept in touch after we were done with everything. And eventually the communication died off, and I didn't know why. And so I found out through mutual shipmates that she had taken her own life. And she was only 20 years old.
Wow.
So it's definitely a touchy subject for me, but it's one that is of great importance, and it's a work in progress.
Right.
As I mentioned, I'm almost 40, but I don't have it all figured out.
Right.
I would say that as far as personal mental health, just acknowledging your true self and finding the ability to tap into your own gifts.
Right.
Can set you free from the pain that you have, whether it's from past trauma or current situations.
Right.
If you're living through it today, tapping into your gifts that you're given can really help be like a medication to you without being on medication.
Right.
Some
Really.
people need it. There are things such as chemical imbalances for folks. And in that aspect, that's where medication does come in and can help people that are struggling with mental illness.
Right.
But for the most part, in my recent experience with just trying to get my life together,
Right.
I would say it's tapping into your gifts and the people that are around you that support you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Ooh, and thank you for your service, ma'am.
Thank you.
Absolutely. But also like in that, so everything about that, right, is in very powerful, things that you mentioned and, and a lot of experiences that you've already had, you know what I mean? Like early on and that like take you into now. And I'm sure 40 is probably a time of reflection. I'm getting there. So I feel like that's where I'm at. I'm like looking back on my life.
Yep. It's coming.
Yes. But I'm sure, I mean, do you feel hopeful about it, regretful? Like, how are we?
This is crazy because I am so excited about my 40th birthday. It's just baffling to me because I will take you back to my 30th birthday where I was extremely depressed. I was extremely overweight. I was postpartum.
Okay.
So I had postpartum depression and I just did not have the right balance of life responsibilities mixed with whatever medication they could have helped me with it. And I was suicidal at 30 years old. So fast forward 10 years, that's
Yeah.
a decade.
Right.
And I am just embracing 40.
Yeah.
And I've been planning a birthday trip that I could have never imagined, but I've been dreaming about for the last year, which is going to Morocco
Let's go.
and Spain.
Hey.
In Spain, I will be visiting where my ancestors came from in Granada. So I'll have my cousin with me and we'll get to set foot in the same roots where our people came from at one point
Wow.
many years ago. So I'm embracing it.
Yeah, exactly. Looking for, but I definitely relate to that so much because mine, like 30th was also like so womp womp. 'Cause my friends
Really?
tried. I remember a few of them took me out. It's also friends that aren't necessarily in my life anymore. So there's that.
Okay.
The over time you realize who's in your circle. So that's one piece. But like I had just recently left the relationship of the father of my children. So I hated that year. I was just kind of like, you just feel like a failure. I was just like, remember thinking like, great. Like, oh my, I'm supposed to be starting over. I thought this was like my prime when I would be figuring it out.
40's your prime, baby.
Exactly.
40.
Exactly. So that's what I'm holding on to. That's what I'm saying. And it's a time to reclaim. So that's what I was like, I feel like this is I had recently said reclamation season. That like we should definitely reclaim our time. And it's never too late to do that, and to kind of start life on your own terms. But yes, I would definitely say that there's been times where things do feel like they were outside of, our control, if you will. But wow, there were a lot of things that you mentioned. And I feel like, so speaking of that, so you had running away, you know what I mean? You had that one. And then the military itself is also already a very complex experience. Let
And they
alone.
don't like to talk about it, folks.
Yeah.
So I don't want to get myself into too much trouble, but yeah, they don't like to talk about that part of it.
Right.
But it's a huge facet of serving.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And it's just one of those commitments, period, which is admirable. You know what I mean? There's a lot that you can gain from it, but it's just, I'm sure there's a lot that's to it. Just like it would be with any commitment that you do. I'm just also thinking about like knowing though that someone unfortunately was not able to leave that experience with you is very unfortunate. And I just, we definitely can't take it lightly that some people are not even just in there, right? And just in that space, but there's so many individuals who were not able to manage their mental health in a good
And
way.
she was so talented. Like she was so young when I met her, but she had the ability to learn so quickly. Like
Right.
she was just a sponge. And so the fact that it is gone from the universe is just very unfortunate.
Right. And then that's also the incredible part, right? Is that sometimes the most like wonderful minds, you know what I mean, are the ones that sometimes are troubled the most.
Right. She was very intelligent for sure.
Yeah. And and that's also why it really is just what it is, the tragedy that it is. Like when these things happen because we are robbed of people that like were larger than life, quite literally in some cases. And it's just like, to know that. So that's why I love that, we care enough about to bring more awareness about it because that's why I like to talk about it, to be honest, because I do feel like I would love for more folks not to feel like, to go towards that option. But it just, that always, makes it all the more real when we can realize that there really are individuals that we're speaking of. It's not just a concept, right? That we're just
Exactly.
addressing, but these are real people, real lives that have been, affected by.
So it's like, where do we tap into? How could we have saved her? That's where sometimes my mind goes. And I've written about her. I write poetry and I write short stories and
Yes.
everything. But I do have a couple things that I wrote about her, and it just makes me wonder, like, could anyone have done anything differently?
Right.
I don't know. I don't have the answer to that.
Right. Of
So
course. And interesting that you said about saving, because like the other thing is, speaking of like 40s and all this reflection, right? And all this time, is that I also think often about like the little girls of ourselves, right? Like, and what they also needed, which I think like we're probably doing a way better job of honoring the little girls inside of us now that we are entering our other decades of our lives and all those things. But you mentioned that, as someone who ran away in her teens, I'm assuming there might have been something you were trying to maybe escape from. Maybe you were something you were trying to figure out, but like, I'm sure there must have been something difficult around that time. Not that you have to share all the details about it,
Right,
but
right.
just, I can imagine that there must have been a lot, because running away is also not necessarily something that people come to lightly. So for you to, make that an option that you exercised, I'm sure there was a lot running through your head.
So, track back to those years, and I just remember being very angry about things, and a lot of it had to do with household situations. My mom was always working. She was never home, and that made me angry as a kid. I wanted my mom around, and now that I'm an adult, I understand why she had to work so many hours.
Right.
And my father was home. Unfortunately, my father is a recovering addict. And, I witnessed a lot growing up. Mostly in the adult years, I saw his struggle with addiction to opioids.
Right.
And, I did witness him overdose. But as a teen, I didn't understand why he was home. I'm not an adult yet, so you have to like try to put yourself into the mentality of a child.
Right.
Why is dad home? Why isn't he working? Why is he watching TV all day?
Yeah.
It gave me, this resentment towards him because I didn't understand why he wasn't working and my mom wasn't home.
Right.
And it was because he was on disability. And there was a legitimate reason for that. Way earlier on in life, I think I was around 4 or 5 years old. My mother went through the process of getting him on disability because he couldn't work anymore. His back was shot. He actually was ran over, coincidentally, by a drunk driver. So my father is a recovering drug addict, but also a recovering alcoholic.
Wow.
And he was working on the side of the road on somebody's car. I don't know if he was changing a tire or he was doing something, but he was on the side of the road. And he got hit by a drunk driver, and they dragged his body, I don't know how far, but, if you looked at my father's back, he's still alive to this day. He has an incision from the top of his back of the neck all the way down to, the back of his waist area where he had surgery.
Jeez.
And so you take a person who unfortunately struggled with alcohol addiction,
Yep.
tried to get sober, eventually found that space to be sober, and that's where I came along. My mother finally got pregnant with me when my dad became sober. But once he had that accident, guess what? He had surgery. He got put on medication, pain medication. Guess what? He got addicted to pain medication. And, it's just a trickle effect from there. So I just remember when I was a teenager, just being angry, not wanting to be around the house where there was fighting. My mother and father, they're still married to this day. They were married, then they were divorced, then they were remarried. Oh, it's a whole thing.
Right.
Yeah, it's a whole thing in my family. But at that point, they were arguing a lot, and I didn't want to hear it. I didn't want to see it. Imagine your mother being gone all day. And then when she is home, she's fighting with your dad.
Yeah.
So I was just like, you know what? I'm good. I'm going to just take my bike and my hammer and my backpack and some snacks and be on my way.
Snacks are important, right?
So yeah, that's kind of where that came from.
Wow. But then it's, obviously there was a party that wanted more, you know what I mean? And something else other than that. But I know a lot of us have been exposed to that because, like mine was the opposite because my mom was the alcoholic in my family. And I wasn't there for the relationship that she had with my biological father, but she did have an abusive relationship with my brother's father. And
Okay.
so, exactly. So it was a little different. So I got to skip it one way, but I got to watch her like deal with the effects of what had happened there with the drinking. And it's funny because even though that was her thing, so she was around. I don't remember her working too much, but I do remember her being drunk often.
Yeah,
And so I'm just
it's the
like,
worst.
it is.
When you're a kid and you see Mama Dukes, or it's the worst.
It is though, because I mean, kids should feel safe, where they are. And it does suck when, we're aware that like when you're in that inebriated state, whatever it is, because whether it's alcohol or drugs, we know enough. We may not know enough about the drugs, but we know enough that like they cause you to be, lower your inhibitions. Like obviously you're not gonna make sound decisions during it.
Right.
And that's what I remember not liking that either. I was like, I don't like feeling like this, uneasy.
Yeah, that's a different version of mom.
Yes.
And as an adult now, I can see things from both sides.
Yep.
Obviously, put ourselves in our mother's position. Because
Yep.
even though my father was the recovering alcoholic and drug addict, my mother had some drinking issues as well. They
Yeah.
partied. They were wild back in the day. They
Yeah.
were living and sowing their oats. And
go.
now that I can be an adult and see myself in my mother's position, why was she drinking? It was probably to numb whatever pain she had.
Absolutely.
She had to deal with my father and his shenanigans for so many years.
Right.
And, she lost both her parents at a very young age. My grandmother was only 46 years old when she died from leukemia. And then her father passed when he was only 64. Wow. So she dealt with a lot of pain. Yes. And, not that alcohol is the means to numb that, but that's where some people find it.
Absolutely.
And as a matter of fact, my father, he lost my father is one of 12 kids.
Okay. Wow.
So he was the oldest brother. And now that I can think about things from a different perspective and not in the mind of a child,
Right.
he lost his little brother. His brother was only 5 years old when he lost his little brother. And he was the oldest. My father was the oldest son.
Wow.
And so as soon as that happened, he started drinking. He was 13 years old when he picked up a drinking habit. 13.
Oh, God.
Because he lost his brother. Yeah. And back then, you're talking about the 1960s, 1960s. Right. They didn't talk about mental health. They didn't talk about therapy. They didn't talk about, any type of anything for trauma, losing a younger sibling. So his medication was alcohol. So think about our moms, why they did what they did. Maybe it was because they needed to numb whatever it was.
Absolutely. And I think it was interesting that you said too earlier about like now we have positive coping tools that serve almost like they take the place of medication. They're like the good medication,
Right.
if you will, that we should take. But again, not to negate the fact that the regular medication that people do take can be good for them. So like you said, like for some people, that's a good thing. It's not that we're against it, but there are other tools. But I agree that wasn't always what was available. But alcohol was. And so it's like, no, was it necessarily the best tool? No, but like, is it something that can help? Yes. And like, just like when you're sick, you would go to the store and get some medicine. I mean, if there's something that can make me feel a bit better, I'm going to do it. You know what I mean? Because I'd rather do that than feel all of this. So like it makes you tolerate a bit more. And so I agree. I definitely am able to look at her, and it's funny because you gave me the perfect transition, like as far as how we are as moms now. And so it's like, I agree. I definitely think that I have a lot more grace that I extend to her now. And I just,
yeah, for sure.
You know what I'm saying? I'm like, man, you really did.
Even with my dad,
Yep.
My mother and father are both still living.
Yep.
They have a lot of health issues and whatnot, but I try to give them the benefit of the doubt now. Absolutely. Because I understand life was not easy.
Nope.
They met each other in the projects.
Oh, man, come on.
Yeah, they met each other in East Cleveland projects. They were somewhere near Collinwood way back in it would have been the 1960s. And both of their families were in situations that led them to the projects. And that's where they met.
Wow.
So, they've been through a lot together.
They have. And they still have the testimony of a marriage, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But for better or worse.
Even though last week my mom took a little vacation to her brother's to get away from my father. So
She needed
maybe
her
that's the
time.
key. You need those little breaks.
Space. There you go. And then we'll come back.
Yep,
We'll come back
little
together.
breaks. Take them.
Let's do
Take
it.
them.
Exactly. And I'm glad she knows, right? She'll take her time. But I agree that like now we get to be moms.
Yo.
And I was curious about that. I was definitely gonna say, like, I'm sure as a mom, you've had time to reflect on, your own mother's journey, like you said, what it's like to be a mom, because there's no manual for that either, as you mentioned. And so, like, yeah, motherhood is also a fascinating journey. I'm sure that has been for you too.
For sure. It's a self-evaluation tool in the nicest way.
Right.
I mean, you're looking at somebody who joined the United States military because I wanted to be a better version for my kid. I joined late in life. I was 35 years old when I graduated from boot camp, basic training. Most people, when they join the service, they're retired by 38. They do their 20 years and they're good to go.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
I
Yeah.
waited, I thought about it earlier in life, was never at the point where I had the self-confidence to do something like that. And COVID hit and I felt like my daughter needed a better example. And I think that, obviously military training teaches you discipline and different things that not everybody has in your day to day.
Nope.
So am I happy I did it? Yes. It did change the way that my daughter looked at me.
Right.
And so as a mother, that's a big part of my experiences. She has been a self-reflection tool of like, you better get it together, mom. You better get it together because you're shaping this person's life
Yeah.
in all the ways.
Right.
So
I agree. And I just love, like you said, not only self-evaluation tool for sure. And like you said, in like the best way, but also that they do have honest conversations with us. We have,
oh my goodness.
yeah, they do.
Everything from your attitude checks to like, mom, are you going to wear that today? Like, you sure you're
Exactly.
going to wear that?
For real.
I don't know if that's appropriate for your age. This is coming from an 11-year-old.
I'm telling you what the heck. Who made you? No,
Right.
Who raised you? But yes, they will call us out. And I do love it, right? Because they're going to hold us accountable. You know what I mean? They're going to let us know. But I agree, especially the girls, man. Like, I think they're the sweetest. They really are.
Yeah.
But then they are the
We don't
most-
have boys.
We do not. We do not. I know. Like, I think I just met someone recently who I think maybe it's this year. A lot of people that are having children right now are having boys.
Oh,
Yes.
wow.
Must be some in the water. I don't know. We have our different times, but I know that's not our story. So we don't know. I mean, I've heard that the
Yeah.
boys have a lot more of the energy and they're all over the place, whatever. And then they mellow out. And then supposedly we might, get the opposite experience because they're going
boy.
to become teenagers. That's what I heard. At least that's the running theory. You can correct us, y'all, if we're wrong.
Yeah.
But it's like, but either way, I do love but what we're setting up in the meantime though, like foundationally, I do love it. You know what I mean? Because some of it is some uncomfortable conversations, but we're also having conversations that I never even ventured to have with my own mama. I could never talk to her about the stuff that they talk to me about.
I 100% agree.
I'm telling you.
It's, it's a cultural shift.
Yep.
We're a different generation than our mothers. And
Yep.
we have to respect that because at some point, their mothers brought them up a certain way.
Right.
So the lack of conversation that we may have had, just imagine what lack of conversation they had with their mother and so on.
Yep.
And, decade by decade, I think that it breaks down a little bit more.
Absolutely.
So that we can prepare them a little bit better for the world because things are different now.
Yeah. Oh, are they?
Things are just a little different for women in 2025 versus, the 1950s and 60s.
Yeah, that part.
So,
And that's what I was thinking of too when you did say that as a woman, you entered the military, which was really cool, by the way, that it wasn't influenced by like wanting to be a good mom, you know what I mean? And just setting this example for your daughter who's looking at you, you know what I mean? Who sees what you do. But I also did think that like, I know that's also a unique experience being a woman in the military. Is it really is the guy's guy land that you would say, or like, has that changed?
it has changed. And I can only speak to my experience and the stories of people that went through training a lot earlier than me.
Yeah.
And I am fortunate enough to say that as a woman, there wasn't that much of a difference through my training.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
I think more than being a woman, what stuck out was the fact that I was old enough to be some of these girls' mom.
That would be the
I
only thing.
remember, early on in training, we had our little kumbaya moment where everybody was like sitting around in a circle and saying how old they are, where they're from, blah, blah, blah. And, I give my age and they all look at me like, and this one girl was like, that's how old my mom is. I'm like,
Aw.
okay, let me show you how I'm gonna whoop your butt in PT. And then you come and tell me I'm mama.
Yeah, exactly. What you playing?
Yeah, for sure.
That we can still
But
hope.
even to this day, and maybe, being in the reserves now, it's a little different than active duty.
Yep.
Women that are in the military full time.
Yep.
Because I work a civilian job full time and I work as a reservist part time.
There we go.
So it might be a little bit different. So maybe women that are full time right now would have a little bit of different perspective. But
Oh yeah.
I don't
Okay.
have anything to say, as far as like in any kind of negative light being a woman in the military. It's been
And
just
that's a
as
good
if,
thing.
yeah,
Yeah,
just as if
exactly.
I'm,
Yeah.
homeboy over here. So
Right, exactly. But I love that because we're allowed to infiltrate whatever space we want,
Mm-hmm.
you know what I mean, and do whatever activity we want. And so knowing that that is welcomed, and so it
Mm-hmm.
definitely was, and Sean is great. I definitely would love for more folks to know that, and more folks that might be considering doing it later, because like you said, it may not have been the norm, but it's still a great dream. Obviously, realize that you wanted to do, and I think
Mm-hmm.
like. What you could also is still be thinking about doing instead of starting it. So the fact that you did it at all is just dope. This is a great thing that you now have, as a list on your list of accomplishments.
I would recommend anybody that is considering it to do it as early as possible. Don't wait until you're 35. I mean, if you're up there in the 35 range, you could still do it. So it's still possible. But the
Absolutely.
best deal, honestly, is to do it straight out of high school so you can get all the benefits,
Yeah.
get your education paid for.
Yeah.
I still have student loans because I went
Me too.
from high school to college and then started working, et cetera. And, there's ROTC, there's different ways for you to utilize that military experience and actually, get your education paid for.
That part, because
Yeah.
and apparently, like the opportunities to pay back the student loans are changing now in 2025. So yeah, I agree. I'm feeling the pain of that now. It was all in deferment, and now I'm
Right.
like, crap.
Now it's
Okay,
like, reet,
exactly.
reet.
And the bill is large. So yeah, I'm just like, ugh. But working on it. So yes, but I agree that there's different ways at different times. But I think it's dope that you did it at all. Period. And like, come on
Thank
now, hats
you.
off to you. So yeah, absolutely. But like, and then speaking of that, you also, I know, expose your daughter to a lot of different things. Like there have been a lot of different activities she has done, and that programs that you've been able to put her in. So like, I mean, I love to do it too. I know I like to keep my babies busy, but y'all do some pretty cool stuff. You know what I mean? And like different programs that you have definitely
She's,
placed her in.
she's been a dancer at heart. So I have a video on an old iPad of her when she was 9 months old and she was not walking yet.
Yeah.
She was sitting on her rump and she was dancing to Ariana Grande at 9 months
Get it,
old.
Bookie.
She was dancing. I was like, oh my goodness.
Yes.
And she started actually taking dancing lessons at the age of 2. And she's 11 now. But so a lot of the things that I get her involved with have been tailored around dance. She's had everything from your traditional like ballet, tap, jazz, contemporary, hip hop to just recently we did a lot of West African dance, which was new. She's
Yes.
taken flamenco, so
Okay,
from
come on.
Spain. So she's been exposed to a lot of the arts in terms of dance.
Yes.
Just because I noticed when she was 9 months old that she had
Let's go.
she had a little, a little jig going on.
Right.
And not to be, a Debbie Downer, but just recently she decided that she didn't want to do dance anymore.
Oh,
And it
no.
wasn't because of the dance itself.
Yep.
It was because she didn't feel like she fit in at the studio that she was at. And 11 years old for a girl, if you can, try to go back in time,
Yep.
is really rough. That is where, you're starting to look at your body image. Girls can be mean. Like all the things start happening. Puberty, when you're 11, it's rough. And
it is.
she felt like she did not fit in at her studio anymore after all these years.
Right?
So right now, I'm giving her a little bit of a break, but eventually I would like to explore some new dance studios that maybe are a little bit more diverse.
Yeah, that part.
And she wrote a letter to me and her father explaining like why she didn't want to go anymore. And it was heartbreaking. It was really heartbreaking. And so at this point, you know, I don't want her to lose that skill because
No.
she's literally danced her entire life.
Right.
But I want her to also have a place where she feels accepted.
Yeah. No, we need that.
So shout out to any of the dance studios out there in Cleveland. Hit me up because I'm on the hunt.
Right. Oh yeah,
I'm
yeah.
shopping.
Okay, yeah. And then, well, and that's funny because speaking of that, well, and one of them is Rosa. So Rosa Cruz, I don't know if you know about her dance studio, the Latin
I
dance studio.
remember her from one of your podcasts.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, we love Rosa. The babies are in hers, so her summer
Okay.
camp is starting soon. So if you would
Okay.
like, you know, what I mean, we can, you know, look at it. More Latin for sure, but she also has urban, so there's more
Okay.
like the hip hoppy. Now,
That's Charlize's jam is hip hop.
oh,
That's
okay,
her
then
jam.
she would love the urban.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And Rosa she lays it down. So first
Okay.
of all, she's stricter, so she don't push the girls, is what I mean.
Okay.
But also, like, there are gonna be some fun dances. Like Imena is over the moon. Like she has different age groups or whatever. So Imena loves it, the little 8-year-old. Ilana loves it because they're really getting it in the 11-year-old and up. And like, yeah, there's definitely different ones. So yeah, but she just basically brought it back. Like this
Okay.
past year was her first year opening back after like 4 years.
Oh wow.
Exactly. She took a hiatus, but she's dope in and of herself because like Scream Team, like she used to be on the Scream Team for the Cavs.
Oh,
So like
okay.
this is, you know, full
I
circle.
think I remember that now.
Yes, but I think, but no, what is unmatched though is definitely like that West African, like you said. Like I think that is just
That.
that's so
Oh my gosh.
So dope.
Japo, like shout out to
Yes,
them.
Japo.
They became family.
Yeah,
like
that's
I
so
was
dope.
going through so much when we would go every Saturday,
That's
12
dope.
o'clock. And we brought my mother one time and they did they gave her honor.
Oh,
She couldn't get up and dance with us.
yeah.
Her health is really bad. And so they brought the respect to her at her
Come on.
chair and just honored her in a way that I've never witnessed. It was
Right.
amazing. But they are like family.
Yes.
And I can't wait for them to start their sessions back up.
Okay.
Because
yeah.
it was like
Oh, so they're on
therapy.
break? Okay.
There's my mental therapy.
No, for real.
Seriously,
That's
every
why I brought it up.
Saturday.
Absolutely.
I was just like, okay, I need this. It was a good release, and I
Yeah.
could do it with my daughter. We did it
Exactly.
together.
No, for real. No, that's why I shouted it out for sure because I was like, no, that really is dope. And even the flamenco is dope. I've definitely told you, I don't know too much about flamenco. You have invited, she has invited me, y'all. I'd be like, okay, yeah, because I don't know too much
It's
about
fun.
it.
It's in
It's
our
different.
roots.
It
It's
is,
in our
though.
roots. And according to my mother, you know, I want to see the I want to see the documentation to prove this. But according to my mother, our ancestors were flamenco dancers and guitarists. So
Oh,
the
cool.
family that came from Spain had that in their roots.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'd like to dive deeper into that research because
At
I
the
know
end of
that
the day.
one of my aunts has you know gotten a little bit further in that research, and that's how I know like where her family came from in Spain.
Right.
But I would love to know more about the artists that were dancers and
Absolutely.
guitarists. So.
And there's just something so dope about that. That's why I think it's so cool. Your Morocco, you know, / Spain
Yeah.
trip. This gotta happen because I feel like it's such a cool time. Like you said, 40s we were planting. You know what I mean? I feel like 30s we were figuring it out. But you know, now we get to kind of like take our place in our 40s. Like I feel that. I feel like I'm gonna be.
We know what we
you know
want
I mean?
at this
Exactly.
point.
And we can kind of do
Fellas,
it.
no,
more,
I'm just kidding.
Shout out to but it's true. But that part, and I feel like it's gonna be so dope, like to get in touch with your roots, also in the process, like celebrate, do all these great things. But yeah, because the Spain thing is not surprising, of course, that you do have roots in Spain, because you know as Puerto Ricans,
Right.
we all got some Spaniard roots, whether we wanted to or not.
They came.
They did come and they conquered
Yep.
in the worst way. But you know, and I mean, and then I believe you told me that though, right? You also have like some Native American history.
Yes. So when I was in my early 20s, I termed myself Cherokee Boricua
Okay, let's go, girl.
because my father, if you saw my father, you would say, he doesn't look like a white dude. He looks like he got something in him. It's because he has
Can't put my finger on it.
Cherokee,
Oh, that's
Cherokee
fine. Okay.
Indian. And our family on the Cherokee side came from Tennessee.
Wow.
So my great grandmother, her name was Daisy Mae Crow.
Okay.
She was full-blooded Cherokee, and
Okay.
she dabbled and she got her a white man, and that's where things changed a little bit.
Okay.
So yeah,
Wow. Okay. And have you also been able to start researching that part and all that, or is that still new territory?
Not so much research, but
Yeah.
when I think about my parents and the home that they live in to this day, and just like over time, I was exposed to a lot of the Native American culture.
I love that.
The art, the practice of everything with tobacco to the prayer rituals and
love
the
that.
drumming.
Yeah.
My parents were involved with, it was an Eastern Lenape nation.
Dope.
So Lenape obviously isn't Cherokee, but they welcomed my father and my mother in, and they were involved with that tribe for over 10 years.
Let's
So they,
go.
you know, they had powwows, they had ceremonies. I was gifted a lot of things from the chief of that tribe. And so I saw firsthand that culture.
Yep.
And I mean, there's so much spirituality
Yeah.
and power
Yeah.
in the Native American culture, which, like, not to get off topic, but that movie that we were talking about is from the very beginning. They didn't listen to my people. The Native American people tried to warn them.
Oh,
They
yeah,
didn't
yeah.
listen in that movie, Sinner. So it was like, it would just reminded me about all of that.
Yeah, absolutely. But that is actually right on topic, ma'am. So, but that's exactly why I brought it up. Because no, like the cool thing is you do have a mix, like we were saying, like your identity is very complex. You know what I mean? Like there's
Yeah.
all these different pieces. And that one is a very cool one too, on top of that. And I think that that's like so on point, right? Like you said, with even with the drumming and all that, and how powerful, because Native American culture, first of all, is like super interesting, fascinating, and extremely powerful. I totally agree with that. And I actually had the privilege of a client of mine who also has Native American roots. And I remember asking, one of the first questions was like, what is the thing that like brings you peace? Like what kind of serves as like your balance? And like when I go to the reservation. which I
Really?
go to-
That's
yeah,
what brings that person peace.
exactly.
Wow.
And had not been there in a while. Last time he went was
Okay.
with his mother. And I was just like, wow. Like, you know, exactly. And I'm like, just stuff like that, which we, you know, don't have. It's also the fact that reservation, because it just sucks that that's
Right.
even what
The
it's been
whole
reduced
reality of
to
that.
is just a lot, but it's super amazing that it brings that. You know what I mean? And it does bring
That's a
that peace.
surprise to hear.
Yeah, I know, it was really cool. I know, I
Yeah.
was like, greatest person, you know, and then that's why I'm really grateful to my agency. Like I will say, they give me some diverse clients. Like we definitely serve Latinos first because we have, well, and it's really not just Latino, Spanish speaking, because I do work for an agency that is provides virtual services to Spanish speaking clients. So of course that's like first goal is to bridge that gap. But when I get to have a little bit of sprinkle of other things, like I'm like, this is so cool, and like
There's so
need
much
that.
wisdom in the
Yes.
Native American culture, and
freaking
I mean, there's such a connection to the spirit. You know,
Yes.
everybody has their own name for God, Allah, whatever you want to call.
Let's go.
But you know, in Native American culture, we call this the spirit, the Great
Yeah.
Spirit, and that is God. And there's just so much knowledge and wisdom and guidance
Yes,
when you
ma'am.
tap into that. And I'm getting the goosey bumps because you
It's
know,
funny, I went to my arm too.
oh my goodness.
Hilarious.
It's just, it's been with me my entire life.
Yeah.
And it's not something that I even have to like tap into. It's just
No.
there. I used to be afraid of it.
Yeah, I hear you.
I used to be really afraid of it, but I just embrace it now. So
Yeah. And that's the thing too, though, that like, you know, because if we go on talk about mental health is so broad anyway in and of itself. But what you started to mention though is that there are these things that help us, that serve as therapeutic tools, and dance would definitely be one of them. I freaking love dance. I definitely love when it's African. Well, that's why I love, like, I'm not gonna say I don't like flamenco. I'm just not, I'm new to it. But like, I love me some salsa, you know what I mean? And all these other things because of their Cuban and African roots. So like, I love like,
it's in the DNA.
you already know.
You put the music on in our booty, our bodies, our booties and our bodies, all of the above.
Yeah, both the bees.
All the parts, they
Yeah.
just start moving.
They do.
Like you can't deny that. That's-
Enjoy.
That is DNA.
Yeah,
That is in
absolutely.
your roots.
Yes. And that's what I love. So
Yeah.
I love that, like, when we can get reconnected with that and like rooted in that. So that's why I definitely love that. But I also love that, as you mentioned, that whenever we have something that like spiritually helps us, because speaking of faith, I definitely think that like faith is in and of itself, right, can be this great tool that can help anchor you, like balance you and all of these things. But especially from a spiritual standpoint. And to be honest, like as I continue to like deepen myself in my faith, I feel like that's like a part that's been missing. One, I think what's also
What has been missing?
the spiritual aspect.
Ah.
So like, well, and two things, because the other thing is that when you mentioned it, I know that there's like this debate too about some of like the new age practices and like how some people, you know, they do it more in a way that's like with the crystals and with the
Yep,
sage
yep,
and blah,
yep,
blah.
yep, yep,
So we have
yep.
that. And then we have others that are like, no, it needs to be more, you know what I mean, rooted in the Bible and
Right.
religious, you know, whatever. and all these things. I'm not saying like, whatever is in like to minimize
To
that. I'm
each
just
their
saying,
own,
to each
yeah.
because they do have value. But I love like that at the end of the day, stuff like that, like the spirituality of it. You know what I mean? And just like how are you rooted? How are you balanced? And you did say God though in your case, so it's not like you necessarily view God is like an entity necessarily, which I used to say though. I think there was one time where I used to always say like the universe, the universe did this, the universe did that. And I was like, nah, that's God.
Well, I say the spirit because I think about the songs. Like
Yeah.
my folks, as I mentioned, they were involved in a tribe and they did a lot of music. They did a lot of drumming and a
Yep.
lot of the songs I got to see and hear. And, my mom has a Native American songbook
Yep.
with all these, and they always refer to the spirit.
Yeah.
You're not
Yeah,
going to
yeah.
see like a song and mention God. They're going to say the spirit.
Yeah,
So.
absolutely. But what's interesting is that even if we did look at other religions like Christianity, they also acknowledge the Father, the Son,
Right.
and the Holy Spirit. And it's what's been really interesting for me as I was saying as I deepen into it is that the Holy Spirit is pretty powerful in and of
Oh
itself.
my goodness. That is my bestie.
Yeah.
That I don't listen to all
But
the
that's
time.
what I'm saying though. But you feel me? The neglected bestie. You feel me? So that's what's
The Holy Spirit is my best friend that I don't always listen to.
exactly.
I need
So
like a
don't always-
bracelet that says that.
No, but that part because I'm like it's that best friend that gets neglected,
Yep.
and isn't always appreciated,
Right.
and
But
like
they're there.
but they're there.
They're like dee 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 dee, and you're
For
like,
real. I'm telling you,
attention.
yeah, because like it could save us
yeah,
from a lot of things, and it do be right there. It's that feeling that we have,
Yep.
and we'll still be like, nah, I got me something else. Can't be that. Like you cannot be telling me, especially if it doesn't agree with what I want. So I'm like, this
Exactly.
can't be it. It's got to be something else. So that's why I would say that the spiritual aspect is the one. Like the father thing has been also, something that I've been trying to embrace, like how God can really just be, fill in the gaps, even where our earthly fathers, you know what I mean, have done, because your father's not like a bad man. He just
Right.
obviously battled some things. My biological father too. I would definitely say stepfather was great. But he has a past. He was in prison before and all of these things, but like an incredible person. And then biological father did nothing bad. We just didn't get the chance though to have. He was
Right.
not a part of my life always. So of course my relationship with him is fragmented because of that, but just naturally because there's so
Right.
much time that we just won't have. But
didn't have.
yeah. So like, it's no love lost. I mean, I think he's a great guy, but it's just I only know so much
Right.
about him versus God has always been here, providing this example, and just God keeps showing up in my life. So that's the
He talks to us.
That's what I'm saying.
You got to put in the work though, and I've noticed that
Right.
a lot recently with like I brought this because it's just crazy sometimes when you go in to read a passage and it's spot on. It's like,
I feel
yo,
you.
he is talking directly to me. He's like, he honed in and he was like, you better wake up and pay attention to what I'm saying in this verse because I'm talking to you.
Yeah, for real.
And it's
wake up.
just, it's astonishing to me.
Yes, exactly. But also very validating.
Oh, yeah.
But it also can be like unsettling a bit to be like,
Yeah.
hey, you really see me.
Oh,
What's up with that? That's not-
I-
you can see me less.
I think like just a couple days ago, he spoke to me so direct that I was using exclamations in my reflection. Like, and
Yeah.
I don't speak with exclamations
Yeah,
much,
I do.
unless I'm like mad
Okay.
or super excited. But like typically in this, what is it? The 365-day devotional. I don't use exclamations.
Got you.
But I did the other
Oh,
day.
I don't do them in my devotional though. You're right. So that's interesting.
Yeah,
Hey,
just the other day I
Feeling it.
did. I was like,
Feeling it.
psht, psht, hallelujah, psht, and those exclamations were flying in there because I just couldn't believe how direct the message was.
let's go.
Yeah, it was crazy.
That is, and then that's funny because, but like as you said that, I was like, I think like I do it in real life though. I kind of live in the world of exclamation points. They're in my texts. They're in everything I do. But it's funny because like bringing it here, you know what I mean, is interesting because meanwhile, I agree. I think God that continues to show up. I'll hear different messages or like signs, you know what I mean, get spread because that's the cool thing about God. Like there are signs. So it's like a lot of the different things that we hear, like they can all be blended in different ways. So that's what I always think is really cool. But like, yeah, I was even at a brunch and we were supposed to be giving out like prophetic words to each other. I never do that a day in my life. I was like, I'm not a prophet.
Right?
Not. But I always thought like prophesying and then like even speaking in tongues, I thought that was like reserved for certain folks that
Me
are like
too.
really deep.
I don't know anything about like the people that speak in tongues. That's a new
Yeah.
area that I don't know anything about.
But apparently anybody can, is what I learned. And I didn't know that. So even you and me can apparently, if we prayed on it enough and we believed in it, we could do it.
That doesn't surprise me much.
Right.
No, that doesn't surprise me too much, but I don't think I've ever been witness to it. I haven't
hear
heard
you.
it.
Yes.
So it's like, whenever I see that written, whether it's in, the Bible or like listening in church or wherever, I'm just like, it's the curiosity factor because I just don't have
Absolutely.
that exposure to it.
Yeah. And I mean, and if we don't, come on, that's going to be hard to believe in something. But that's why. And we was at church today and they was
Yep.
talking about walking by faith, not by sight. But we're humans. So we eat with our eyes first.
Right.
With everything, including relationships. So it's very hard when it is something that we're like believing in, unless we have a point of reference. It's very difficult to have that. So I totally hear you. But lately I have. So I did get the chance to get exposed to the speaking in tongues
wow.
and all that. Yep. All of that.
In the United States? It was
In here, yep.
Okay.
I'm talking about in Cleveland. How about this brunch was at Chagrin Falls? So literally,
Chagrin Falls?
yeah, we was over here eating it up, and apparently all this stuff was happening. So yeah, like it happens in our own backyard. And at this brunch with the little prophetic word, I had to give one, and then I got to receive one, and I did feel compelled. Like I actually did get a
Wow.
message on me. Like that I shared with someone that was there. And then I got one for me. And it's funny because the ones I keep getting is that I need to like make myself more of a priority. Like it was literally like, one, you don't see the light that you are, which I was like, dang, I don't think I own it. And then two was, why are you praying for everybody but you? And I was like,
Stop.
oh,
That's being mom to 3 girls. That's what that is. It's like your
Yeah.
nature.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So that's
Feel
why
you on that.
Well, and that's why I was like, I also feel you. You know what I mean? That God really be like, but I see you though. Babes, with everything that you got going on, you know what I'm saying? With everything that you do and how you pour out. Because you, mother and extraordinary, and apparently are, in the reserves and doing a full-time job, like you do a lot as well. And so it's like, he still sees us in the midst of it. You know what I mean? And I just was like, I need
Gotta
that
put in the
reminder.
work though.
Yeah.
You can't just be hanging out on the sidelines. Like
Yep.
I didn't really hear God until I started putting in the work and listening.
Yep.
And well, not so much listening, but reading the word of the Bible. I never
Got
read
you.
the Bible until this year.
Yeah, I feel you.
And I grew up in Catholic school, and
Yeah.
my grandfather had a Bible that he had highlighter and notes in that he carried around with him for years. And I never read the Bible until recently.
That's what I'm saying.
And it's
Crazy.
like, now that I'm putting in the work, I'm listening and I can hear what he's saying. And it's
Yeah.
like, oh, okay.
Yeah, exactly. Now I'm here. I'm listening now. Mm-hmm. Right. But I do agree with you. Like, I feel like, and it's one of those things too, to like put ourselves in position so we can be blessed in a way to hear it. And that's just in life too, though, because even if we want certain things, if we're not putting in the work to get there.
Yeah.
Like I saw somebody that was recently posting about entrepreneurship, and they were like, if you really want to be successful, but you kicking back on the weekends, you know what I'm saying, and chilling, how you
Every
expect to
day
be
I'm hustling.
Exactly.
Like, listen to the song to get you motivated because
that part.
you got to put in the work.
You do. Oh, you do. So it's something like it could definitely be related. But speaking of faith, I just think what's dope is, you did mention, and you don't have to like shout out your full-time job, but we used to have a full-time job in common, which was really
Oh,
cool.
yeah.
And we didn't even
Shout
say that.
out.
Yeah. So for those who don't know us, oh yeah, we go way
Nonprofit.
Yo, literally, we go way back. And even that was another mistake I made on the student loan side. I wish I would have putting in my for my public loan forgiveness. But
Amen.
it's the difference now because I'm not necessarily I'm still in nonprofit, but I'm most likely going to be coming out of it. So what the heck? But we were at Esperanza back in the day. We go all the way back.
Charlize
to
was
that.
like 2. So this,
Wow.
So yeah, like 9 years ago.
Yeah,
Is that it?
which is, I think so.
Wow.
That makes sense too, because I had a baby shower there. At one point I had a baby shower at Esperanza, and I think it was had to be for my oldest. Yeah. So it had to be my oldest.
That's
Because our babies
crazy.
my oldest is the same age. So like it is insane. And we now have also connected on church. Like I think it has been so dope. I just wanted to like let you know about my church. I had no expectations. Like if she don't come back, it's okay. I ain't gonna take no offense.
It's amazing to me because speaking of the military, when I came back from active duty,
Yep.
I was like a shell. And that's no diss to anything. It's
Right.
just when you're full-time active duty, like you're just in a mode.
Yeah.
And especially for my rate, the job that I have in the Navy, it's so mentally draining that I was disconnected from everything when I came home. And especially disconnected from my faith.
Yeah.
And on top of that, I started going to church where my daughter went to school, and it was a Catholic church.
Yep.
Fast forward, and I connected with the priest that was there, and unfortunately, he was not a good person. You know, you see the bad stories in the news, and
Right.
that was on, you know, that was in the limelight for a while with priests in the Catholic Church and whatnot. Well, it was a reality. And so after that came to light, I was done. I was like, I don't want any part of it. Here was a person who explained the message of God in the Bible in a way I could understand, and then he was a bad person? Like, how
Right.
does that happen?
Right.
And so I was just taken back, turned off, wasn't going to church for a long time. And coincidentally, you know, I asked you where
Yeah.
you went to church.
Yes, I'm positive it's something like that.
yeah,
We're just talking about it. Yep.
And so, you know, you introduced Kings to me, and here we are. I just joined the prayer team.
Yeah.
So
I love the
it
prayer
took a
team.
while for me to like warm up to the idea of becoming a member. I mean, I was going there for like a year before I decided to fill out the paper, and, you know, I didn't know where I fit. But
Yeah.
after that experience with the female pastor, I knew that was where I should be
Yes.
with the prayer team. So
But the funny thing is too, and me being the person that introduced you, but you're even better than me. I went there for like 3 years before I.
really,
I like literally. I also came off some church hurt. It wasn't Catholic church. It was also a Christian church, non-denominational. But I had some church hurt too. So
Yeah.
I came there just like
church her. That's the first I heard that expression.
Yes, add it to the archives. But it's real. And it is. It's like it's damaging. You know what I'm saying? It's a lot.
Yeah.
It's exhausting. And like I was depleted.
It's like a bad relationship. You know,
Abso-freaking-lutely.
you trust it.
Yep.
You open your heart to it, and then it's like,
Seriously, exactly. And in my case too, like I was starting to voice it, and I unfortunately got like met with like deleted friends. Like I became like somebody took me off their Facebook who was in the church, and I was
one
like,
of those.
yeah, I was like, oh, that's interesting. So I wanted to have a conversation, like find out. So I just did not. It definitely turned me off as well. And then like no, so when I came to Kings, I was just trying to. I was depleted. I just wanted to like,
Same.
Yeah, I just wanted to take in just you know, and let me do that. And I love that there was no pressure to change that. Whenever you're ready, you can take that step. And that's what I liked about that. So I was like, yo, if you're looking, like by all means, then definitely like try come here, because I definitely think I love going to places where there aren't egos. Where it feels gentle,
Yeah.
and where it's rooted, you know what I'm saying, in a real lesson. Because in our case, the word, but I'm just saying, period. Like whenever I'm getting fed, I feel like is a good place, and I'm getting taught well. That's kind of everything for me, and that's what was really like, you know, what drew me in the most when I went there.
Well, and shout out to Kings, because at that point where you get that from them, you want to give back.
Yes.
So that's like, you know, you serve. I'm at the point now where I want to,
Yep.
because I do think I have a gift with prayer. I mean, there's been so many instances, even in this book alone, where I have prayed about somebody
Yep.
and then they message me, and it's like, okay, you know, I know that it's legit.
Let's go.
And so
Gotta use it.
after that experience with Casey, I think her name is,
Yes. Yes. It may.
I was just so blown away by that connection, and I was like, this is where I need to help out.
Yeah.
So
And I love that, because I feel that I felt drawn to that team before, but I haven't always like taken the plunge, because I always feel like fraudulent because I don't pray enough. I feel like in my own life. So I'm like, joining the prayer team, should I? Maybe I should pray more first. So it's funny, but I think it's so powerful of a team. So I love that you're interested. You know, I say all that to say, I think it's a great team. It's needed. And I do think people can benefit from prayer. Like there's so much power in prayer. And so like,
it is legit.
yeah, straight up. So that's why I'm like, you knowing that you have a gift and that you got to use it. You know what I'm saying? So like, I love that you want to, you know what I mean? And then like use that, and it's been validated to you before. So like,
Right.
why not? But I'm telling you, but we all got our stuff, you know what I mean? And like things that we can use. But I agree. I definitely think that as a result, overall faith, you know what I'm saying, has definitely been an anchor for me. And I love that, you know, we can share that. We have many times.
Yep.
And yes, we did talk about faith when we saw Sinners, y'all. Because first of all, Michael B., he was my
You talking about my husband?
No.
Oh.
That's not. I love you to death.
Okay.
Although here's the thing though. Speaking of Michael B., I don't know though that like he's still my man or not. I'm on the cusp now, because I'm like, first of all, he played that role too well, and
Both
he
of
was
them.
yeah, first exactly. One, you a twin, so
My
yeah.
goodness.
I'm telling you.
Mind-boggling.
It was because even like when my girls watched Liv and Maddie, I don't think they understood. Like that was
That
one
was the same
girl.
person.
Yo, it's two different personalities. I'm like, shout out to that girl. Like she was amazing. So like this was pretty incredible. So on the actor side, he got it. You know what I'm saying? He
Right.
got it. But when you do evil that well, I don't know. It just makes me like, oh crap. Like let me. I
You're
mean,
signing up for something when you tap into a character.
like that.
And actors know that. Actresses,
Yep.
both. I feel like I've seen it more common with the males though, where they really tap into the evil
Yeah,
body.
that is true. That
And
is true.
it's astonishing, just like
Yep.
because they take that with them. They have to. Like you
Yeah.
become that character when you go home at night to take a rest. Like,
Yep.
how do you release that? It's something else.
That is true. And because even like Heath Ledger, goodness, God rest his
Right.
soul. Like
Exactly.
that was method acting
Couldn't escape that one.
at all. But I do agree with you that like, yes, there's some there. So I remember thinking about that. So I was kind of like, I don't know. I might have to release him to you then as your man now. Because I don't know if I could claim him.
Well, they were twins, so you get one, I get one.
Okay, there we go. So we'll just share. That's fine. I love the world.
I want the non-vampire one.
Okay. Well, that's the hard part. I think we all agree. Because first of all, the vampire one, he was also doing that too well. And that was he was very enticing, but also like way too evil. So yeah, it was just too much, but like very captivating nonetheless. I don't know if I want to be captivated like that though. So agreed. But that one was also like, that was a fascinating way to talk about faith though. You know what I'm saying? And that in it. So that's why I'm like, it was powerful on both sides because you saw the evil playing out for sure. But like, I do love that they talked about the importance of, you know what I mean? Knowing about the good, you know what I mean?
Well, remember in the very beginning where my peeps,
Yes.
the Native Americans, lesson number 1, listen to my peeps.
No, I mean,
They
I know it
tried
was warning.
They tried to save y'all from the very beginning.
I'm
That dude
telling
was
you.
burning in the fire in the sunlight.
Like literally, you gonna let him in your house?
Right.
But he was like, no. He
They
one
didn't
of us.
listen. They didn't listen to my peeps.
Gosh, yes.
Lesson 1.
That part. And I think it's interesting given our times, you know what I mean? Who we were willing to listen to, even though all the signs show that it's burning to the ground. But we're like, nah, let's just face forward. So yeah, that was fascinating. We all knew too. As soon as she called for her husband, I'm like, girl, he gone. He gone.
There was a part of that scene that I've seen this movie twice.
Yeah, yes, you did.
And it was like too much for me to comprehend just with
Yeah.
everything. But that scene where she does go upstairs to her husband that has become something else, were they not in a child's room with a crib?
I do think it was a baby
that
room.
like has yes, and it's like it's an element of the movie that has stuck with me and turned my stomach, but it wasn't explained.
No, it wasn't.
There was a crib in that room, and he was
Yeah.
sitting in that chair when she came in, and it's like,
Oh.
where was the child at? Was there a child? I don't
I
know.
don't know exactly because they didn't. Yes, that's true. And there was a lot that I agree with you. Like there was a lot of storylines. You know, what I mean, there was a lot of stuff we saw. You know, that we were able to see. Period. That I agree with you. Like that to play them out. Like if we followed any one of those characters, there was like it would have took us in a different direction. So like, and they put it all together in one time, and it was such a historically important and fascinating time to be alive. Period. Let alone with all of that going on. The evil forces at play. I think it was also creepy hearing Our Father being said out loud.
I
them
know.
just mocking it. It was.
I knew though that
Insane.
character was El Diablo. I knew
Yeah,
it
he had
from
to
the
be the
very
ringleader.
As soon as he was introduced into the film, I was like, that is the D. That is the devil.
But how he can present like gentle though, you know what I'm
Right.
saying? Be playing.
Oh, it killed folk music for me. Like I like folk music.
But that was a
and
rep for that?
scene with all them singing the folk music, like
Yes,
it killed it for me. I was
yo,
like,
that was
I can't,
creepola.
I can't listen to it the same anymore.
Can't do it. But agreed. So we did spoil some for those who haven't seen it yet. But I would
Sorry.
hope by now
Sorry,
y'all
not
seen
sorry.
it. Exactly right. Because that movie was good though. But it is a good way to look at some of this stuff. So no, I think it was a great depiction of and the cinematography was amazing.
I got
It was a great movie.
my Halloween 2025 costume from that movie.
Oh, stop it. Okay.
The last scene.
Oh, it's
like
happening?
the 80s vibe.
Oh, it's going down.
I'm her.
Okay.
I already got like the clothing for it, so I'm excited.
But that too, though, because you are Miss Fashionista out here. You know what I'm saying? She be over here getting, you know what I mean? Oh, she being modest, but you be having dope stuff, you know what I mean? That you be wearing, collecting, curating.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, that movie gave me my Halloween costume for this year. So
Okay, well, look at
excited.
that. So, yes.
All I gotta buy is the vampire teeth.
Okay, that's it. And there we go. It'll be a full blown situation. Exactly. But but I agree. Like all of that, like
And then I need the dude. I need somebody to play my dude.
there you go. Okay, so we're looking. And then speaking of dudes, now my only other obsession. This will be its own episode though, so I'm just gonna say it and plant it. But Love Is Blind. I'm late. super late to it, so I'm just not watching it.
I
But I'm
never
not
seen
going.
it.
Okay, but don't start because you might be like me and be addicted. So like, I literally hadn't started it, and I watched like 6 seasons in like
Uh-oh.
2 weeks. So that's bad.
Binge
Something's wrong.
watching.
I got a problem. But as a therapist, though, I be going in. I'm like, they need me. Let's sit down and talk about this. Like, I think we need to.
You wanna
have a
tap in.
I do though. I do. And it was. I'm telling you, there's some that like on the abuser side, you be like, oh no, please run away. And then like one guy, you could tell he had like red flags. He was a walking red flag, and he had money. And I was like, no, no, no. Those are the ones that end up controlling you. Like
Right.
you being dependent on them. You got to leave that situation. But thankfully, the girl did. So I be praying in that as if it's not already passed.
Right.
But I'm like, girl, I got you. Please.
It already happened.
It did. And sometimes my heart goes out to the guys too. You know what I mean? Some of them be, so it's just interesting to see. But I can see why America, we love that. We love a good love story, don't we? So, but that, I mean, yeah, that definitely in and of itself
So
is.
I'm looking for my Michael then for Halloween
There you go.
2025. Y'all.
All right, well, we going to put that out there, y'all.
80s vibe. You got to get the sweater in that scene where they go to
Get
the
it right.
bar.
Exactly.
I already got my outfit ready to go.
There you go. Okay, well, we got to make that happen now. So we'll find it. But ma'am, I could keep you here forever, you know what I'm saying, and talk about all the things. But is there anything like, on the horizon for you?
Just that birthday, man. That 40.
Yes, about to be dope.
That Foxy 40, that trip.
C40.
That trip to Morocco and Spain. Like, I
Yes.
just can't believe it's happening in a month. I'm overwhelmed. I have to pack for myself and my cousin because we're going to be in Morocco, which is a little more modest in the dress area, so I got to make sure she's clothed properly.
Yep.
It's going to be a challenge.
All right, so
My cousin Raquel.
Yeah.
Shout out Rocky.
Yeah, she's dope, but she's a ball of fun. She gonna have to bring it back a little bit. Sucks, but well, we gonna get her together though.
Yeah. I'm packing the linens, the
Got
linen
you.
clothing. We're gonna try.
We're gonna figure it out. Yep, we're gonna find a way. But I love that. So I love that's happening. Happy early birthday,
Thank
then, Miss
you.
Ma'am. By the time y'all see it, you know what I'm saying, the birthday will be either soonish, so y'all can make sure you wish Jennie a happy birthday.
June 13th.
There you go. Exactly. Make sure y'all note it. But speaking of all that and all the droppings, is there any ways that individuals can connect with you, if they want to?
Ooh,
Learn
I
from
didn't
you.
even talk about this. Speaking of mental health,
Yeah,
I'm on
please.
a 30-day social media break.
Oh, snap.
So I participated in a Mother's Day workshop, and we set a goal. And part of my goal, I knew that I was going to have to disconnect from social
Okay.
media. So
Let
I
it
didn't
go.
delete my accounts, but they're not on my phone.
Got it. Yes.
So I do have Facebook, Jennie Valez, or I have Instagram. My Instagram name is fashionfinds613.
See, fashion.
That's all I got.
Yeah, those are
Somebody,
good.
somebody talked me into a Snapchat recently, and I have one, but I couldn't tell you what my Snap is. I don't know.
Okay, yeah, we'd have to look it up.
not being used.
I feel it. Snap is interesting though, yeah, because it could be a little bit more secretive because you only do the
Right.
the chat. There's no comments with
Right.
Snapchat. That's what is the intrigue for some
I'd say
folks.
my Instagram is probably the most used
No, the
because
better,
I put
yeah.
a lot of my outfits and stuff on there.
There you go.
So
And there's a messaging feature, so if you want to connect, there's ways.
fashionfind613.
There you go. Find out. So and that's helpful. So that's enough to be able to at least tap in, connect.
I'll be back on June 12th. That's the end of my 30-day
Perfect.
hiatus.
In time for the birthday, so y'all can.
I'm
there you
about to
go.
post a birthday pic,
Exactly. That'll be your reintroduction. I love it. So, ma'am, thank you so very much.
Thank
know,
you.
Yes,
This is
for coming
fun.
on. I'm glad. And y'all, if you resonated with anything, connected, please, reach out. I mean, there's so many things, right? With like military experience, being a mom, mental health, it was just so much. So I thank you, and I hope everybody else, gathered, taking something from that. And like I said, hopefully you feel encouraged, in any way on your journey and on your, path
Amen.
of self-discovery. We figuring it out as we go.
Yep.
So y'all can join us because we're all trying to do this together. So again, thank you.
Thank
so
you.
very
It's been a
much.
pleasure.
I'm glad.
Such a cool vibe here.
Yay, thank you. That's the goal. That's the goal, y'all. So yes.
Yes.
But you'll do it again on another Feel Good Friday, y'all. And join us next time. Thank you.
Adios.